It's time for Business Minds Coffee Chat, an inspiring show about the journey to personal and professional growth. And now, your host, Jay Shear.
Hey everyone, you're listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat, and I am your host, Jay Shear, and I am super excited today. I have got a fantastic guest in the studio with me. My guest today is someone who has a passion for healthcare, a can-do attitude, and a natural bias for action. She and her husband, Jack, have been married for over 25 years, and she's a proud mom to 3 adult children. Originally from Kansas, she's made Flagler County her home since July 2022. She earned a Bachelor of Science from Fort Hays State University and her master's degree in healthcare administration from Wichita State University. And when she's not working, you'll likely find her running, reading, traveling, and exploring new areas with her family. Please welcome the president and CEO for Advent Health Palm Coast and the market CEO for Advent Health Flagler and St. John's, Denise Bales Chubb. Denise, it is wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure. I'm really excited about today's conversation. And, you know, when we were talking before we started recording, I was asking you what was going through your mind when you were thinking about today's conversation. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would love for you to be fully transparent here and just share what was going through your mind when I asked you to join me today.
Well, this is my first. I have never done any kind of podcast or live radio or anything like that, just besides being interviewed regarding business.
Sure.
So this is my first time. So, a little nerve-wracking. I will admit that.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Well, we're going to make this as comfortable a conversation as possible. So I thought we'd start off with a really easy question just to start the conversation and explore a little bit, and let's see where that goes. So if you were to write your autobiography, what do you think a good title for that book would be? Kind of looking over your life up to this point, what would the good title be?
Wow. Maybe From Prairie to City?
Okay, From Prairie to City. All right, I like that. All right, so let's explore that one just a bit here. So you grew up in Kansas. Tell us a little bit about life for you on the prairie. Okay. So what was life like growing up in Kansas? And maybe give us a little bit of background on what type of child you were.
Well, so growing up in Kansas, my family farmsteaded in Kansas clear back when the German immigrants came to the United States. So as they literally opened up new territories, my great-great-grandfather was out there staking out land. Wow. And that's how we got to Kansas, and that's where we put down our roots and everything. And ever since that time, the land has stayed within the family, and we have farmed it. We're called wheat farmers. We grow a lot of wheat. We also grow a few other things, but mostly wheat.
Okay.
And, and in the middle of Kansas, almost dead center middle of Kansas. So a lot of prairie, not a lot of trees, definitely no ocean like we have here,
Sure.
Just a lot of prairie. And, being a farm girl, you work. So you have your chores from as soon as you can possibly take on chores, you have chores. And, the expectation is that you participate and help out wherever you can with the family. And, that is just your life. And you never question it because that's what everybody else around you is doing as well.
So give me an idea of what type of chores you would do on the family farm.
Okay, well, you always have livestock to feed and make sure the livestock is watered, that they have water and they have feed and everything.
Okay.
One of the more interesting and less delightful chores that we had is every summer we grew what we call milo. And at that point in time, there was weeds that would grow up like rogue sunflowers and other stuff that we called black amber. I don't know what the technical term is for it now.
Okay.
And so our parents, we would go out and cut that out. And so like for us kids, we would have like maybe 4 rows, 2 and 2. And then we would cut that stuff out and we walk from one end of the field, clear to the other end of the field, cutting all this bad stuff that shouldn't be in the field, turn around, come back. And we would do that for 2 or 3 hours in the evening. So, that's just one. Now, today they'd probably call that, some sort of child labor issue,
Sure, right.
We were definitely, but that was just a part of life.
Yeah.
You did what you needed to do to make the family farm successful.
So you have 2 sisters and 1 brother.
Correct.
And so growing up, what was the most exciting thing happening in the town where you lived?
Oh, my.
I mean, what kind of things did you do outside of working with the family? What kind of things did you guys enjoy doing?
So we were heavily involved in our church,
okay.
Growing up a Seventh-day Adventist. And so we were all involved in our church. And so, there were things that we would do with some of the families that also attended that church. So usually, Saturday nights might be a game night or we'd make homemade ice cream. I mean, it's really, really basic. Most people today would say, wow, what a yawn. But, we enjoyed it. We had fun.
Yeah.
A night out might look like, driving 40 miles to go to the nearest Pizza Hut and share pizza with your family. So, yeah, we would sometimes go putt-putt golf.
Okay.
And so, again, you're driving 40 miles to go to the putt-putt golf place. There was nothing near us. We had no streetlights, no town, no anything near us. And so during the winter times, back then, we would sometimes get, somewhere between 4 and 10 feet of snow during the wintertime. And we might be snowed in for 2 or 3 days until the snowplow came and dug us out.
Wow.
So you always had to make sure you had, reserves and things that you needed to survive for, up to a week.
That is so interesting. Must have been somewhat of a culture shock when you went to college and then started to experience other aspects of life in a different city, which hence becomes the name of the book that the book title that you just gave me. So let me ask you something. I brought this up, but I really like the spelling of your first name. Now, for those that are watching and listening right now, it is Denise, Denise. So tell me a little bit about the origin of your first name.
So when I asked my mother the same question, because, as you grow up, how people get the little things with your name spelled on it. Well, mine, I could never find mine. And it's like, Mom, why is my name spelled so differently from everybody else? And apparently when she was carrying me, she was reading some novel, and I need to go back and try to see if she can remember which one. And she saw that spelling in that book. There was a Denise with a Y in that book. And she loved the way it sounded and the way it looked. And so she decided to do something very different with me. And maybe that's led to me being very different from everybody else in the family, too. So,
well, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all wrong with that. So your mother, you had mentioned to me, is still living. Your father has since passed away. So let's talk about your mom for a moment. As you think about your life growing up in Kansas and you think about your mom, what is one of the most valuable life lessons that you've taken away from your mom that you still carry with you and that comes up from time to time?
Yeah. So, my mother got married pretty young, straight out of high school. Mm-hmm. And she did not go back to college until I was in high school. And all of a sudden she decided, oh, wow, I'm going to have these children that I want to put through college, and I need to have something more to provide, income. So she went back and got her medical technology degree so she could work in the lab in the hospital. And she never, though, let us girls, as she raised us, it was just inbred into us that you will go to college. There was no ifs, ands, or buts.
Okay.
You will go to college. And, you need to figure out what you want to do with your life, but you will go to college and you will find a career that will make you happy. Don't do something that doesn't make you happy. Find something that's going to make you happy, because then once you have that and you are in charge of your own life, you can do whatever you want. And you can basically go wherever you want. And she said that's just empowering yourself to be in the driver's side of your life. And so she was right. She was absolutely right.
So your mom has been able to see your career trajectory and all that you have been able to accomplish for yourself up to this point in life. She obviously must be very proud of you.
Proud and surprised.
Surprised.
Yeah, surprised.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I hated school. Oh my goodness, did I hate school. To me, that was just like, putting me in a little tiny jail in that little desk in the room, because I wanted to be outside. I wanted to be running around doing things. I was a very active child. And so I think that she was surprised that after college I chose, because I've actually got a dual college degree, and then I went on for my master's. And when I told them I was going back for my master's, I think both my father and her about fell off their chairs, because they were like, no, not the daughter that hates school that we had to literally bribe to go to school. And so, they were really pretty surprised that I chose to go on in my career and to, really pursue something that I felt very passionate about.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. So when you think about what you had envisioned for your own life, you get to a certain age, whatever that age is, and you're starting to think about, it could be very early in life where you kind of envision yourself, well, one day I'm going to be X. What were some of the things that you thought about for yourself?
So I always thought I was going to be a nurse.
Okay. Because
my great-grandmother was a nurse, my grandmother was a nurse, and, even though my mother was not a nurse, she went to the lab. I just had a lot of people in healthcare. And, of course, I only ever saw really the nursing part of that. So I just thought that was the natural path that everybody took.
Okay.
And so right after my high school graduation, I got a job at the little hospital there in La Crosse, Kansas, and worked as a certified nurse's aide. And I quickly realized that if a patient started to throw up, I was joining in. And so, I wasn't any help at all. I was, I really had to excuse myself from the room and go find somebody else to help. So I quickly shifted, and I went into the lab work as well, because there's a separation of patient and the work that you're doing. And I really enjoyed the sciences. So I loved chemistry, I loved biology, and so that seemed to be a natural fit for me. And then when I got done with that, I just felt like, well, there's really something else out there for me. And good, bad, or indifferent, I think that I was always kind of seen as the one to take charge and the one to organize and one to lead. Even in the family, my family would realize that I tended to be a take charge. I mean, some people call it bossy, I know, but kind of a take charge type person. And so when I learned more about what hospital administration was about and everything, and the business side of it, in addition to how you can then, really do something that can change a community and change people's lives in making sure that they have access to great care, that was for me. And, I loved all of my master's classes. It was like, oh, wow, yes, now it's all coming together. This all makes sense. And, and I just really have never, ever thought that I made a wrong choice someplace. I think that everything that I've done up until now has always just been additive to what I am doing. It helps me make better choices in the role that I'm currently in.
That's amazing. So you went from really not enjoying being at school to, once you kind of nailed down your purpose and really figured out that thing that lit you up, it was like there was no stopping you. Now you're loving all of these classes.
Absolutely. Yeah. You just got to find what your passion is.
Oh, yeah, that is for sure. And sometimes it takes us, some of us longer than it takes others, and that's quite all right. Right? That is okay. So, Denise, we're going to hit pause on our conversation here because we are going to take a brief break to thank our amazing sponsors, my friends. Don't you go anywhere. You're listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat. We will be right back. This is Jay Shear. Are you a business owner or entrepreneur trying to figure out how to improve and achieve greater results? If so, I'm speaking to you. I provide the tools, coaching, and accountability you need to gain clarity around your personal and professional goals, remove the excuses holding you back, build the mindset, leadership skills, and proven strategies to grow your business and become the best version of yourself. To learn more or to apply for my coaching services, call 904-236-0431 or visit jshearbusinessconsulting.com.
Thank you so much for recommending us to your family and friends. When you need a 30, 60, or 90-minute massage, it's real easy to book your appointment online. MassageByNatalie.org. MassageByNatalie.org.
There's no business like show business like no business I know. Visit the Fitzgerald Performing Arts Center at Flagler Auditorium. We're about to release our new season of professional touring shows. Visit our website at flaglerentertainment.com. Sign up for our newsletter. You can be the first to know about our shows and special offers. And remember, every time you buy a ticket to a show, you support the performing arts in Flagler schools and you support our local economy.
All right, we're back, and again, you are listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat, and I am in the studio today with my very special guest, Denise Bales-Chubb. We are having a wonderful conversation, and we're going to continue that conversation right now. So, Denise, before the break, we were talking about family. We were talking about you growing up on the prairie in Kansas, and a little bit about your upbringing, and also what life was like there. So, I was curious to find out from you, what is one of the hardest things that you've overcome? So one of the hardest things that you've overcome, and I would also love for you to share what you learned about yourself going through that situation, whatever it was.
So, growing up in a very rural environment, very, close-knit family. Mm-hmm. And I would have to say that leaving home knowing that you may or may not, return for any long-term, type engagement was probably pretty tough because, right now I get to see my family 2, maybe 3 times a year. And so, and all of my other siblings have migrated back to Kansas and live within probably a 20-mile radius of the original farmstead.
No kidding.
And so I am kind of like the black sheep or whatever you want to call it of the family because, I'm off doing my thing.
Right.
And, when you have aging parents and they start having health issues, mm-hmm. You really want to be there. And, when my father fell ill, I was in a place where it was difficult for me to take any kind of long-term vacation and get away with him.
So he was there
in Kansas, and I was in California.
In California at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that was a struggle, because I was very close to my father, and I really wanted to be there to support him because there were times when I felt like he was kind of giving up. He had some chronic illness issues and everything, and sometimes you just felt like, well, there's nothing left to live for. So why am I working so hard? Why am I trying so hard? Why am I going through this therapy and everything? Yeah. And that's hard for a kid to hear their parents say that. And so trying to work through those dynamics and, how can I be there but not be there? How do I, and that was before we did Zoom and all of that other stuff, And so it was more difficult to connect and have those meaningful relationships. And so, I did what I possibly could. And I actually, was able to take more time off the year prior to his passing and go and spend more time with him and everything. And even though I'm not sure how that may have impacted my career, I just kept working and doing my job. Mm-hmm. But, I'll never, ever regret, making sure that I took that pause, took that time, and, made sure I was there for my family when they needed me.
So going back then, so the answer to the question is that leaving home was the most difficult thing the hardest thing that you've had to overcome. And through the experience that you just described with your father and being able to spend time with him before his passing, what did you learn about yourself through that process, knowing that your dad's toward the end of his life, you're in California, you're taking time away, you've got a busy career, but you understood the importance of this. What were you learning about you through this?
So I think that, because you always think, oh my goodness, when I lose a parent, that it's going to have this devastation, this huge loss. How will I get through it? Yeah. And I think that, learning how to survive the loss of a parent and moving forward and truly identifying, what's important in life. And I think that's why it was so important to try to figure out how do I spend as much time as possible, because you cherish those moments. You cherish the wisdom that they, impart to you. Yeah. You cherish, how they raised you and the values that they've instilled in you. And so I think that you then, after the passing and after you go through the grief and everything, I think then you start reflecting on what all did they give me? Wow, what a blessing. And, to have a father like that who cared so much that he was willing to really sacrifice to make sure I did go to school. And I'll tell you, so I went to boarding school for high school. Oh. It was a part of, our culture and our church.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, my mother was pretty, she was like by the books. And I was so homesick. I could hardly stand it. I hadn't been home for several weeks, and I called in the middle of the day knowing that my dad would answer, not my mom.
Strategy.
And yes, strategy. And that when he heard me and how unhappy I was and that I just felt like I needed to come home for a weekend, he would crumble, and he did.
Oh, you're good.
And he came, he drove, because the school was at least 2.5 hours, drive from where we lived. And so he drove, he picked me up, took me home for the long weekend, and then brought me back, so I'd be the class Monday morning. And, that was, wow, a parent really will do anything for their child.
Oh, my gosh. That's a great story. Denise, what makes you cry today? When you get emotional about things, what typically makes you cry?
Celebrations.
Give me a specific.
Okay, so most recently, because I don't think I'm a big crier. Mm-hmm. Maybe some other people would think differently, but most recently, back when I got here in 2022, our Advent Health Palm Coast was struggling with some of our quality metrics and everything. Mm-hmm. And so on January 23, for our leadership meeting, I got in front of the team and I said, guys, we need to do better. I know we can do better. And I'm throwing out the challenge there that we're going to become a top 100 hospital. And that's top 100 across the entire, country. And I went through the reasons why we needed to do that because, top 100 hospitals deliver better patient care. There's less infections. They have better economics. There's better patient satisfaction. There's better team member satisfaction. And, this past April, we got the notice that we had achieved the top 100 hospital.
Amazing.
And, when I got up and made the announcement in front of the team then for our leadership meeting, I got emotional because it was like, they were like my children. It's like, wow, you guys did it. You took on the challenge and you made it happen. And so those things make me emotional. Happy things make me emotional.
That's a great celebration. So I get it now. So the next time I see you celebrating something big, I'm probably going to be looking for those tears. That's where they're going to come.
Yeah.
So Denise, if you had the opportunity to sit on a park bench with any one person who is either living or no longer living, any one person, and you could ask that person one question and one question only first, who is the person that you would want to sit down with? And then secondly, what is the one question that you would want to ask?
Wow, that's a tough one. Well, so we're not sitting here all day. I'm going to say that I would love to spend some time with Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so Queen Elizabeth. And what would you want to ask Queen Elizabeth? What is one question?
I think that I would want to know, how did she maintain her professionalism when she was faced with a lot of real negative adversity? And she did that multiple times. There was so much that happened in that country during her reign and everything. And, because I like to learn from others on how do you approach, difficult situations and get through them.
That's a really good one. Thank you for sharing that. And she handled that with such grace. So as you think about your own leadership and the way that you show up for not only yourself and your family, but also for the many folks at Advent Health that you're responsible for, I want you to honestly assess yourself for a moment. What do you feel is an area that you could continue to work on? Maybe an area where you know that you could hold yourself up to a higher standard and something that you're still working on. What would it be?
So one of the things that I think is so important for a leader is to get out of the office and go rounding on the team members, the physicians, and patients.
Okay.
And often our calendars get so crowded with, the day-to-day. And so, I have tried to just block, X number of hours during the week. And we try to protect that so that I can get out and talk with people. I mean, my office is boring. I'm dealing with all sorts of things that, have to be dealt with, but may not be the fun things. And to me, the fun things is getting out and talking with the nurse on the floor. How's your day going? Tell me about your most difficult thing that you're dealing with today. Do you have the resources you need? Yesterday, I got to go round on 2 of our patients and find out how's the care that we're delivering. It's nothing better than hearing directly from a patient, that, wow, your nurses are wonderful, that you have an amazing team here. The food could be better, but,
But that interface
yes.
directly with people,
yes.
that's something that you're working to.
It makes you feel better about what you're doing.
Yeah.
It makes you want to get up every morning and come to work because you really are making a difference and helping your community be better.
Yeah, I love that. So, Denise, I would really appreciate it if you would give all of us, everyone that's watching right now, that's listening to your voice, and including me in this, what is one challenge that you would give to all of us?
You have to be able to show up to work every single day being your very, very best. It doesn't matter what's happening in your life. You've got a team that's dependent upon you to lead them, to challenge them, to inspire them, to, continue to do better. And so when you show up at work, you got to be there. You got to be there with your whole heart. You have to believe in what you're doing. You have to believe in the team that you're supporting. And so I think that we are our own worst enemies because we let ourselves get in the way of being better and being our best. And so that would be the challenge. Be your best. Show up for your team.
That is a really good challenge. Thank you for sharing that. And Denise, I want to thank you so very much for joining me today on Business Minds Coffee Chat. I really have enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate you being candid and authentic and allowing the conversation to go in a multitude of different directions. I'm grateful for you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You didn't make it too tough on me today.
I'm going to get in trouble for that one. But I do appreciate it. My friends, for all of you, thank you so very much for tuning in today. And we will be back next Saturday morning at 8:30. And until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep doing the work to reach your potential. Take care, everybody.